Oh, hello. What are you doing back inside my cave? Lucky for you, I just had a snack, so I'm not too hungry. I love to eat, but each year it feels as if it's getting more and more expensive. But that's inflation, I guess. What's inflation, you ask? That is a good question. If you want to be financially savvy, you need to understand how inflation will affect your entire life and well-being. Let me explain what inflation is, how it works, and some thoughts for you to consider. Understanding inflation means you can prepare for it. Sit back and relax. Inflation is a complicated topic, but I'll try and oversimplify it for you. Inflation refers to the increase to the prices you have to pay for goods or services each year. Over time, everything goes up, so inflation means you have to pay more to buy the same items. For example, let's say I want to buy all the ingredients for this delicious sandwich. In total, today it costs me $10. Now next year, those same ingredients might cost $10.50. I have to pay more to get the same stuff. That's inflation. Inflation reduces my purchasing power. I cannot buy the same stuff with $10. The more time that passes, the less my $10 can buy. $10 is known as the nominal or numerical value. I have the same $10 amount each year. What it can buy is the real value. The more time that passes, the less real value you have, even if you have the same nominal value. $10 in 1 year is worth less than $10 now in real terms because I won't be able to buy as much. In 5 years, the same $10 will be worth even less in real terms. Inflation refers to the increase in the cost of stuff over time. The inflation rate is the percentage it will increase each year. The higher the rate, the faster your cost of living increases. Inflation will reduce your purchasing power in the future. Inflation is not constant. It changes year to year. Some years it may be low, other years it may be high. How is inflation calculated? We usually think of inflation as the increase from 1 year to the next on everything, so it is the rate your cost of living will go up by in a year. Different things will go up by different amounts. Rather than figuring out the rate of increase for each thing, we combine the rates together to calculate one rate representing the overall increase for everything. In the example of my sandwich, notice how the bread went up more than the vegetables. Together though, the cost of my sandwich went up by 50 cents or 5%. We combine the rates of two different items to get the 5% increase. This example was a very small number of goods, just 2. When we talk about inflation, we generally want to talk about an overall rate of inflation representing all goods and services in Canada each year. And yes, I'm Canadian. That's why I'm so polite. Notice how I haven't called the cops or eaten you yet, even though you are trespassing. Canadian. It would be impossible to check the price increase for every item or service out there. Instead, Statistics Canada, the organization tasked with calculating the Consumer Price Index, CPI, samples a representative group or basket of goods and services. Other countries have their own CPI or CPI equivalents. Same idea, but their sampled basket of goods might differ from ours. The Canadian CPI price sample is obtained from a selection of geographical areas, representative goods and services, and types and locations of retail outlets to estimate price changes experienced by Canadians. Here's a quick look at all of the things being sampled. For each item on this list, they try to get a variety of prices from different brands or stores in different areas all over the country. It covers a really diverse collection of goods and services, but it does not cover everything. From their sampling, they calculate the changes in prices to this basket of stuff and convert it into a rate using a complicated formula understandable only to the Gordons of this world. This rate is the inflation rate. You needed to spend this much more to buy the same items you did the previous year. Here's an example of prices increasing at a constant rate of 5% each year. Today my sandwich costs $10. It goes up by 5%, so it will cost me $10.50 in the future. But another year goes by, it goes up by another 5%, or another 52.5 cents, so now it costs me $11.03. An important thing to understand is if the inflation rate is high, costs will go up quickly. But if the inflation rate declines, it does not mean prices are declining. It just means prices are not going up as fast. Today my sandwich costs $10. It goes up by 5%, so it will cost me $10.50 in the future. But another year goes by and inflation decreases to 1%. That still means prices rose an extra 10.5 cents. You now have to pay $10.61. That's still higher than the starting price or the price it rose to in year one. So long as the inflation is positive, the cost goes up. The inflation rate has to be negative for the cost to go down. The inflation rate is an increase to the most recent year's price, which includes all increases in previous years. Hey, where have you seen that before? A rate that increases on previous increases? With compounding. We saw that in the last video. You have watched that video, haven't you? If you haven't, you should watch it. It features me again. Then these are the first two important things to understand. Inflation will increase your cost of living every year. A low inflation rate or a decrease in the inflation rate still means prices are going up. Inflation compounds, and compounding means it will grow exponentially. So how does inflation work with compounding? Let's review the factors in compounding. There was the amount being compounded. In this case, the amount is your living expenses. There was rate, which in this case is the rate of inflation. And finally, there was time. The longer it goes on, the higher the amount becomes. The rate varies, so we don't really know what it will be. However, most central banks try to keep it to 2%. So what does that mean in general terms? If you apply the rule of 72, which is a way to estimate how fast it takes to double an amount when you compound, you will see that your living expenses will double in 36 years. If inflation was 3%, then it will double in 24 years. And 4%, it will double in 18 years. The higher the inflation rate, the faster living expenses will double. What is the next thing to understand? The inflation rate is not how much your cost of living will go up. What? But I just said inflation is the rate living expenses go up by. Why am I now saying it's not how much your cost of living will go up? The problem comes from a few things. The first is how they calculate inflation. It is a sample of past prices. So it is information that is backwards looking. It does not predict what inflation will be in the future. The inflation rate will tell us which direction prices are going. Are they increasing quickly or are they increasing slowly? But there is no guarantee. Inflation could be 2% this year, causing you to expect another 2% next year, but instead it jumps to 4%. Second, inflation is calculated from a selection of geographical areas, representative goods, and types and locations of retail outlets to estimate price changes experienced by Canadians. It is an estimate. Depending where you live and what you buy, your personal inflation rate could be lower or higher. What do I mean by that? Remember, the sample of goods used by Statistic Canada is a general basket of goods. It samples a broad selection of items from different geographic areas. You are not buying everything in that sample basket every year. How often do you buy a woman's gold wedding band? Hopefully not every year. Here's an example still based on sandwiches. I've been really interested in sandwiches lately, and while searching the internet, I found there were sandwiches named after celebrities. We will use my favorite. I have changed the recipes to be a bit more authentic in taste. So my first sandwich, the hero sandwich, costs $10. My second sandwich, when I'm not as hungry and just want a smaller bite, the Danny DeVito, also costs $10. The ingredients for the hero sandwich goes up 2% a year, and the Danny DeVito goes up by 4%. If you only ate hero sandwiches, your year-to-year costs will not go up as much as someone who eats specialty sandwiches. Someone who eats a lot of Danny DeVitos will find their costs going up faster than someone who eats the occasional Danny DeVito. So the makeup of what you choose to buy will affect your inflation rate. Everybody spends differently, so everybody's rate is different. The third reason the inflation rate is not your personal rate is because of where you live. Your location matters. There are regional differences. Your rate for a good or service will be based on where you live. For example, if you live in a rural area, the cost of groceries might cost more than if you live in an urban area. Or housing is more expensive in Vancouver, BC than in Halifax, Nova Scotia. The final thing to understand: income increases do not match inflation. Inflation is not a problem if your income also increases the same amount. So assume this item cost me $5. If my hourly wage is $20, I worked 15 minutes to buy it. Let's say in the future, the same item costs $10. If my hourly wage has gone up to $40 an hour, I would need to work the same 15 minutes to buy it. In real terms, nothing has changed. But if my hourly wage has only gone up to $35 an hour, I need to work longer to buy it. Depending on your employer, wage increases sometimes come 1 or more years after living expenses have gone up. Expenses go up, so employees demand more wages the next year. Of course, the employer does not want to increase wages. The lag on income growth is particularly hard on anyone living paycheck to paycheck when costs go up quickly. Costs jump and the person cannot afford the stuff they need. But their income might not increase until later, so they face months, if not years, of financial hardship until their income catches up. Even when income does go up, it probably will not match the person's personal rate of inflation. Anything that constitutes income must increase by the personal rate of inflation for that person to maintain their lifestyle. It is a person's choice if their personal inflation rate is higher than everyone else's. If you have extravagant tastes, your employer will not want to give you salary raises based on your lifestyle. They're not going to give you more just because you prefer Danny DeVito sandwiches over hero sandwiches. I understand. He is more scrumptious, but that's your choice. For some people, their income may include government payments or pensions. These may be indexed to CPI. Indexing means the amount will go up by that inflation rate. But those payments go up based on the previous year's inflation rate, so they also lag. A final consideration with index payments is which CPI are they indexed to. Some work pensions and government-backed sources of income provide a cost of living adjustment, but if that adjustment is based on the federal estimate for CPI and you live in a province with a higher cost of living, you will fall behind in purchasing power over the years. That difference also compounds, so you will fall more and more behind. Of course, you could always move to Manitoba. It'll be fun if you do. According to their Travel Manitoba website, you can look forward to the biggest mating dens anywhere in the world for red-sided garter snakes. Unfortunately, because inflation is uncertain, you can either react to or plan for it. Planning is better. Employing financial life strategies really does help. Most effective strategies are long-term. Choosing where you live can affect how badly sudden jumps in costs will adversely affect your lifestyle. Your choice of career will affect how easy it is to increase wages. Your debt, fixed living expenses, and discretionary expenses will affect your ability to withstand sudden jumps in costs such as housing, transportation, or food. So why do we have inflation? Why can't we keep it at zero? Good questions, but the answers to that will probably take a bit of time, especially since the answers also reveal more dangers and pitfalls that you have to consider. But I'm getting tired and hungry again, so I'm going to stop here and get a snack. But come back and I will explain all that another day.
Thank you for watching this first part of my two-part lessons on inflation. This is one of those foundation concepts needed to understand why you might want to learn about financial literacy. The next video is going to finish up on inflation. It also stars Winston. And for those interested in celebrity sandwiches, a link is provided below in the description.